Fiona Chan, you're a researcher here at the University of Cambridge. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Fiona Chan. I had an internship in Microsoft Research Asia in 2016 when I researched on how to make chat robots more psychology consistent. For instance, how to make a chat robot have a more consistent personality, and also how to allow a chat robots to understand personality of users.
Could you tell something about what your research question actually was and what you discovered along the way?
My research question was to see whether we can develop statements or items that can be used by a chat robot to reflect personality traits of users. For example, if I want to know if my user is an introvert, I will start conversations, or I will ask my users whether they have plans for dinner in night, or whether they have plans in a weekend, and something like that, to reflect or to understand whether the person is extroverted.
The research is continuing. Could you please elaborate a little on how you think the research will be conducted in the near future?
We have already developed items or some statements that reflect personality of the users. They're all in forms of daily life examples. So what we want to do in future is to automate, to make the script using these questions and automate the process of data collection. Because the study will need like massive data to reach findings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can more or less predict that might turn out to be the case in robots and personality?
I try to examine the quality of each statement that I made or created. However, I think in the future, perhaps there is not much need to focus on psychology in creating a good chatbot that makes your users engaged, because you basically can use statistics to calculate what your users want to say and what they want to know, and you don't have to interpret these information with psychology or personality. So this is what I believe. In the future, they might exclude psychology and make everything a black box.
So it will be more statistics than anything else, do you believe?
Yes, that's what I believe. Because business or companies want to make a product that works instead of understanding what's behind.
And as a psychologist, do you find that encouraging or disappointing?
I find that both encouraging and disappointing. Well, it's encouraging because it does something that we could not do. It predicts what the person wants, and even with our theories and all these research behind, like we couldn't reach that point that we can make so good predictions what our users want. However, with statistics, they made it. But it's discouraging because the area psychology seems not important anymore, because do not help making products as much as statistics does.
Creativity, empathy and improvisation many people believe are skills that humans are beating computers at. How long do you think that this statement will hold?
I think we're already beaten by AI in these few areas.
Okay.
Well, for instance, creativity. An acquaintance of mine in Microsoft Research had developed a robot that could write very beautiful poems.
Mm-hmm.
So you can upload any pictures to the robot, and the robot will write a poem that's about that picture. And the poems are sound.
Mm-hmm.
They are elegantly written, and so I think like creativity is not a problem with AI as long as there are rules to follow. Mm-hmm. For example, music. To create a good piece of music, musicians have to first learn the theories behind notes.
Yeah.
For instance, they learn that what interval would make perfect harmony.
Mm-hmm.
What notes cannot go together because it just sounds terrible. So they learn all these rules, and then they try to compose and make beautiful music. With these rules, AI can also adapt, and it won't surprise us if a robot can write a piece of music as good as human does.
Okay.
However, I do believe humans and robots are not in competition. It's like, well, first we develop these robots. Secondly, is like it's not necessary to compete. Like, just appreciate each other's skills. Well, they are good at something doesn't mean that they're better than us. We could be equally good.
Okay. How efficient could a robot be at playing poker?
Yes, possibly, because on a poker table you try to guess the person's, like, your competitor's intention. There's a lot of bluffing going on. There's a lot of there are a lot of conversations and guessing going on. I think from this point of view, a robot can play really well on a poker table, given the robot can predict the intention of its competitors. I think the real spirits of poker, or real spirits in poker, is to be inconsistent, so that your competitor cannot guess or cannot expect your actions.
Okay.
So then from this point of view, it's actually quite difficult for a poker robot to gather consistent data and to make meaningful predictions.
Okay.
Well, perhaps like if the size of data is large enough for a robot to make a prediction, that's okay, but I don't think we can reach that amount of data for each person just on the poker table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having done all this research in robots and personality, can you distinguish some trends in the directions of research in this area?
It depends on how define robots. If it's a machine and it's not interactive, like there are many areas that try to predict users or people's personality with algorithms.
Yeah.
By for instance, digital footprints, Internet of Things. In the field of chat robots, there are two very different streams. They sound very similar, but they're actually very different. One direction is to make the chat robots more consistent in personality. Another direction is to help or like devise a robot that understands personality of its users. In the hope that in the future the robot can use this information and adapt to this information and make the users more engaged.
Okay. Are we still trying to find out how to make robots personality sensitive, or are we already entering the phase of becoming adaptive to the personality?
To my knowledge, like most of the research projects focus on making robots personality sensitive.
Okay.
So there are many different attempts, or they attempt it from different directions. Well, it's actually not very difficult to do it if it is a structured conversation. However, the tricky part could be understanding someone's personality in a casual conversation. Because if the conversation is very structured, it's actually very easy to get information. But if you want to understand your user like a friend, then it's more difficult.
Will we see in the near future romantic relationships between people and their robots?
It depends on how intelligent the robot is. If the robot is pre-programmed, then I don't think there's a lot of fun to be in a romantic relationship. On one hand, we want people to be attached to robots to solve a bit, like to solve some problems. Perhaps like for instance, they're lonely, so they might need a companion. But on the other hand, we don't want people to get too engaged to robots because they are pre-programmed for fantasy, or like it's just a pre-programmed thing.
Okay.
It's not real in life.
Okay.
You don't want people to get obsessed in this.
Okay.
So it is sort of a dilemma.
So we as humanity don't need to fear robots in the near future?
Yes and no, but I would choose no.
No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.